Yeah. Hi there. Yeah, thanks, Maris. Um, so the compassion practice this evening is Tonglen, which we haven't done for a little while. And I think there might be one or two people here who are not so familiar with it. So I just say a little bit about it again. And if you've heard it all before, can you just bear with me on this? I think it's important that we approach this practice with a sense of understanding it, and confidence, really. Um, so the Tonglen practice, the Tong part of Tonglen means sending out, or just simply really letting go. And the Len part of Tonglen means receiving or accepting. And it's a practice that works with the breath. And as we breathe in the suffering of whoever we're practicing for, the suffering meets the indestructible nature of our hearts, and it dissolves instantly. As we breathe out, we send whatever is needed in the form of light and joy. And we can do this practice for ourselves, for people we know, and for people we don't know, and for all the conditions of suffering in this world without limit. So to start with, it might feel a little bit difficult, and then gradually you can develop confidence in the practice as you get more familiar. So if anyone's feeling a bit unsure about doing something that appears to invite suffering directly into you, Sogyal Rinpoche gives this advice in the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying. And he says, the only thing that Tonglen could harm is the one thing that has been harming us the most, our own self-grasping, which is the root of all our suffering and the root of all hard-heartedness. And so as we become a bit more and more familiar with Tonglen, our self-grasping becomes weaker and weaker, and our nature, our compassion, naturally shines. And we even become less fearful. So in whatever way we choose to direct our practice, it opens our hearts and softens us. It allows us to become more and more receptive to the experience of our true nature, unconditional compassion. So with this practice, just as healing and joy flows out on our breath, the suffering of suffering flows in on our breath to melts an indestructible love. And as this happens, a vast atmosphere of healing can grow inside of us. And it's a wholehearted thing. It's not stuck in the head. So just really enter the practice just in your own way. Feel it in your own way, okay? And so we'll begin with settle. Just get comfortable. And see how we really are in this moment. Just as we are. Just see if you can feel your whole body. Just see how that is. However it is, there's no need to change anything. Just be a bit kind to any aches and pains. And maybe you could give yourself Mary's smile. Smile into your body, into your whole being. And when you feel settled, just take a moment to reflect on your intention for being in this practice. It could be a deep wish to free ourselves of grasping and all the pain it causes us and others. Now just let go of that and give yourself space for your mind to relax and settle. There's just no hurry. Breathing in and breathing out, the natural ease. And allowing your whole being to soften, to open, awake and safe. And from this open view, let's see if you can sense that any tight grip of self-grasping, see if it begins to loosen. And we begin the Tonglen practice. And just to remind you, in this practice, we're not taking on the suffering of others. We're not absorbing it into us. We're removing their suffering by being open, by seeing and feeling their suffering. You're removing their suffering by allowing it to touch the warmth of your open, good heart. And the more we connect with the practice through our heart, the deeper it becomes. The wish to alleviate all suffering triggers our innate compassion. And when compassion is aroused, we're in harmony with our nature. Our fixed reference and the clinging of an idea to self is loosened. Compassion free of all bias is the natural radiance of our nature. So with softness, we open our hearts and invoke all the great beings of compassion that have appeared to help all who suffer. We ask for their blessings to empower our practice. As our hearts open, they respond. Their tremendous shimmering light pours into us, completely filling us, and we melt into their vast, compassionate blessing. And through this blessing, there's no longer any solid identity that could be hurt by taking on the suffering of others. We breathe our own suffering into our open heart. And as it touches the compassionate nature, all our suffering dissolves into light. Our whole body becomes light. Here and now, all the power and compassion of the Buddhas becomes available for the world. Maybe you'd like to spend a little bit of time just allowing yourself to feel this. Just easy. Just feel. We move on to consider somebody that we know who's very dear to us. And perhaps there might be someone you know who's in a difficult situation. You might be depressed, suffering pain or disease, mental or physical. Consider all their suffering and confusion crystallizing together into a dense mass of smoke. And breathe in this distressed air confidently. As it reaches our heart, we feel all barriers are exploded and washed away. All those labels that created an idea of I, labels that define us and limit us, all that grasping completely dissolved away. We're open. And what's left is the radiant jewel of compassion, completely open. And in response, consider your heart pouring out light, compassion, healing and joy to your dear friend. As you breathe out, feel this joy. Feel it flowing out, cool, fresh, healing white light, like breathing out moonlight. And again, you fearlessly breathe in all their distress, pain, and suffering in the form of heavy smoke. And again, allow it to dissolve into the vast open essence of our being. And as we breathe out, we allow love and healing in the form of fresh, brilliant light to release and flow out to them. As I breathe in, their suffering comes into me and dissolves into me. I allow myself to feel their suffering. As I feel their suffering, it starts to dissolve into me. As their suffering dissolves into me, my compassion increases. As I breathe out, I send out this beautiful light that touches them and heals them. Then we can widen the circle of our compassion, thinking of others we know, situations we've heard about or seen on the news. Deeply breathing in and dissolving all that distress, that confusion, and pouring out love and healing light as we breathe out. We open up our practice, inviting all who suffer into this vast space. And on seeing their suffering, our hearts open. And if you're finding this a bit difficult, just sort of sit with it. Be kind to yourself. Focus lightly on the breath for a few moments. Then when you're ready, just return to the practice. And we're not dwelling on the complex stories that surround each and every being, but on seeing their suffering, we embrace the simplicity of their nature, their innate goodness that shines unseen within each of us. When we practice in this way, we're not focusing on their prison of suffering. We're focusing on their fundamental goodness. This is of greater benefit to them. It connects with their own potential to be completely liberated from suffering. The potential that we all have. We connect with that. As I breathe in, their suffering comes into me and dissolves into me. I allow myself to feel their suffering. As I feel their suffering, it starts to dissolve into me. As their suffering dissolves into me, my compassion increases. And as I breathe out, I send out this golden light that touches them and heals them. And we extend this practice with confidence, knowing the only thing that Tonglen could harm is the one thing that has been harming us the most, our own self-grasping, which is the root of all our suffering and the root of all hard-heartedness. We just keep extending the circle wider and wider. We allow this vast natural compassion that responds regardless of where or who to release freely for every being, including ourselves. And breathing in all the pollution, all the suffering of our universe, and allowing it to dissolve in that indestructible space of love. And breathing out, allowing the powerful healing energy of compassion to release into vast space. This innate compassion heals without bias. And when you come to breathe out, simply let go of the practice and settle again into a very easy, natural space, awake and present, just simply letting it be. And you might like to dedicate your practice quietly to somebody you might have in mind. And may our practice touch all who experience violence and fear, who feel alone, unsafe and unsupported.